Hello, my name is Michael Miller. I'm with Dr. Michael Britt. Michael and I are talking today about his website, The Psych Files. Michael has just won the Sloan C. Merlot Award in psychology for his website, The Psych Files. And it's my great pleasure to have you here talking with us about your wonderful site. Would you tell us your full name and a little bit of background about yourself? Mm-hmm. I know you've got a PhD in psychology and what you're doing presently, both in terms of your website as well as your other job, your day job, in effect.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, I got my PhD in social and industrial psychology in 1991, I think officially, State University of New York at Albany, and then went to work for Marist College, and so taught psychology there for 10 years. Got tenure in 1997, and then, much to my mother's chagrin, decided to leave a tenured position to join Pearson, because in the mid 90s we had the internet bubble, and near the end I just couldn't take it anymore because I was watching what was happening, what people were doing, the creative stuff, and this is the mid 90s, so it was still kind of emerging, but it was very cool, and I just thought, I want to do that, because I was getting these ideas of how you could recreate experiments and studies, and you could do a little video here and bring ideas to life, and it was just I wasn't able to do that in my full-time position, and so Pearson said, well, come and do that with us. We're doing CD. At that time, it was CDs in the back of the book.
Right.
It was CD-ROM. It was very big back then. But they were also working on an e-textbook, and which there were none, or what there was really PDFs on CD-ROMs. That was a e-text at that time. So there was all this kind of stuff happening, and I had to do it, and so I've been working with them the past 10 years, and just working on products like that, e-textbooks, a product where students that's sold by Audible.com, where students can listen to summaries of their textbooks. Mm-hmm. So there was the on-the-go movement, and I was very excited, and it was 2007, I guess, when the iPhone came out, and you got this little computer in your hand, and so I thought, hey, yeah, what about what about putting some study materials on there? And so I did that with them, and then also with my own podcast. So the podcast started in 2007, mostly because I really, while I did a little adjuncting, it just wasn't enough. I wanted to explore that integration of technology and teaching, and podcasting was new, and thank God it's still quite popular. I'm glad to hear that. I keep hearing people say podcasting is still going strong. Right. So I'm happy about that. So it started as a hobby. You throw up a website, you learn some basic things about where to put your audio and video. You got to put that over here. I mean, there's a bit to learn to get the thing going. But fortunately, it's not an expensive thing to do, at least in the beginning. And so I just started the first 10, 20 episodes just talking about things that I thought were popular lectures that I gave, and so they would be hopefully popular topics to talk about on a podcast. People listened. It slowly built from an audience of I think there was 3 people for the first couple of months, and then it went to 90, and then I was like, oh, okay, 90 people. And then I just kept doing it because I just thought it was interesting, and I liked technology, and so I throw some video episodes in there, interviews on Skype, just trying all the different possibilities, but just kept doing it. And slowly but surely, my rankings in Google went up, and people discovered it, and so now, I'm both surprised and proud that there's we just passed 9 million downloads for the 216 episodes. Had 20,000 people download every one, and there's like 4,500 and some downloads per day of any of those 216 episodes. And I get emails from people, some, most of them quite positive. Hey, thanks a lot. When you get an email from someone in Thailand who says, I listened to you on the way to work. I've listened to every single one of them. It helps me pass the time. One college student said it helped him to just have something to listen to while he was mowing the lawn. That's cool. It's cool. It's cool. The reach is amazing. So it still just is fun.
Indeed, indeed. You started in 2007, and it was audio podcasts, and now your site has morphed into quite a bit beyond audio podcasts. I've noticed you have video clips included, and you have some excellent commentary on those clips. And could you tell us about making that transition beyond the audio with the video and any other kind of media that you're integrating into your site?
Yeah, I think the first episode that I decided, well, this has got to be video because people have got to see this. You can explain a lot of things, and through a typical audio. But I didn't really want it to just be, well, here's my lecture online. Here's what I would have said in class. So there was a desire for variety. I think that was one of them. Let's get away from audio because you've done that. Let's try something new. I think one of the first ones that I felt, oh, this has got to be video, was when talking about extreme sports. And why do people get involved in extreme sports? What's the psychological mechanism? It's called sensation. We call it sensation seeking. And so I just okay, well, anyone could talk about extreme sports. Well, this is when people bungee jump off the thing. But, you do a search on YouTube and people are doing some crazy stuff. And another, compelling video on YouTube was this guy who just took off. He had one of those, you've seen these in the movies, it's like a suit, and you just raise your hands out like that, and you got wings, and you just kind of fly. And again, so he had a video, he had a camera on his head, and there he is, and he just lets go, and you could sort of feel that. And I just thought, well, here you go. Here are some sensation seekers. And so while I could just talk about it, why not just have this going and really give people the sense of what this topic is all about? And it wasn't too hard to, you download the YouTube video, and so I would sort of talk along with it. And that was my first kind of foray into it. It was very positively responded to. And then I think the other one was one of the most popular episodes for the whole podcast was me showing students how to memorize the parts of the brain. So that's a big thing that all psych students have to do. And as I later learned, the video's been watched by nurses and people in other disciplines. It's really hard, and I'm thinking, how can you talk about how to memorize, a part of the brain unless you're kind of showing the brain? You kind of have to, and but also, mnemonics work when you have weird associations to them, when you have some odd images. And so I just thought, this has got to be video. And so I set up a video one side of the table in my living room, and I had props going, and I would pull them out. And mostly it was a whole lot of fun, and some of it was weird. But again, it's a little bit of love of the technology. It's a love of, well, how would this work? And sure enough, I think it's the most successful, not only because it's video and it's useful. Students constantly say on YouTube, hey, thanks a lot. That's really helped me on my test. So I think that's just so key. I mean, you just got to produce content that is useful and that really solves a specific problem for students.
That's excellent. So you've obviously gone beyond simply taking what's online and putting it on yours. You're actually creating video from scratch.
Yeah.
And you find that very gratifying.
Yeah, that's really fun. When you can take an idea, B.F. Skinner has this great video where he showed two pigeons playing ping pong. I don't know if you've ever seen this. And when I saw it 30 years ago, I was like, look at that. It's black and white, and two pigeons are just knocking back and forth a ping pong ball. And you've really got to see that to get the power of behavioral conditioning. And when I thought about that, I thought, one of the things he talked about was how things outside of us, obviously, reinforce our behavior. And one of the things he mentioned was how people who bowl, sometimes they have unusual bodily positions, and that's because you leaned a certain way, and by chance the bowling ball got 3/4, and maybe you got a what's that called when you get the whole of them down? What is the name for that when you get all 10 pins down? Well, whatever, it's a strike. Yeah, okay. So the thing outside, and it's a funny example of how some event. Obviously, your leaning had nothing to do with it because the ball's gone, but we make those associations. And so I thought, wow, so why not capture that? Go and bring your kids, my guinea pigs, and have them bowl and see if indeed, and sure enough, by golly, you get into these odd, not very extreme, but a little bit, you do these weird things with your body, and it's got to be video. So, having the camera, trying to catch it right, being a little bit of a director, and say, no, just go ahead and do it. It's just very stimulating.
But yet you adapt that to a psychological interpretation. Mm-hmm. So, for example, how would you interpret the willing of the ball by one's bodily gestures and so forth?
Well, that's what Skinner did in his. He did I don't know if you call it a study or an experiment, but he had a pigeon in a box, and he was randomly reinforcing that pigeon. So he wasn't reinforcing it for a specific behavior, but just every once in a while, and whatever the pigeon happened to be doing at that time, it did it repeatedly because it felt it was reinforced for doing it. I wouldn't say felt because behaviorists wouldn't say that, but so a random event created this connection and a behavior that the organism continued to show. And so in that same way, I guess the point I was trying to make to people was this isn't just about pigeons in boxes. Here's you at the playing bowling. And it's happening there too. I had to show the original video, and then I had to show my kids playing bowling.
It certainly seems like a labor of love. How do you sustain that high level of engagement with what you're doing?
Well, I think, to be perfectly honest, certainly I experienced the kinds of ups and downs. And I do get discouraged, or just like, okay, I've done it. Especially now, it's like 7 years ago. I've sort of done it. I just get excited by ideas, and they just kind of percolate up here, and it's sort of like, okay, I just got to talk about this because it's just so interesting. So how to sustain that? I don't know. I just think you have to have the energy. But I think most teachers like to be watched. I have to admit to a little bit of maybe narcissism. It's sort of like, hey, I'm making a video, and you get it out there, and you're like, hey, who's watching? And then they do feed you. That when they email you and say, not just positive things, sometimes, well, hey, I heard you say this, but I think this too, or I think that. So the feedback keeps it going.
You're having far more impact, I would think, in the field of psychology, than many, many professors combined. Does that give you a source of pleasure also, knowing that you are reaching people, not just in the classroom, but elsewhere?
Well, thank you. I hope. I think that's true, and I think, unfortunately, psychological research, which I think is important, it's still written in a way that's just too hard for people to understand. It's packed away in journals that cost too much for anyone to buy, and so one of the things that I really enjoy doing is I see, here's a neat article, and now I'm going to translate. I mean, that's kind of the fun. And I used to teach research methods and statistics, which I was never a big fan of either, and so students were much less. But when you teach it enough, you realize, look, if you're going to take psychology as a an important career choice. Well, it's not just about sitting there and saying, oh, how do you feel about that? Which is the popular perception of what psychology is. It's just a bunch of listening, But it's not, and most people don't know that. And so it's sort of a, charge for me to take this piece of research and say, look, this is what it is. It's a scientific method here. We had two groups. We put them in a within subjects design. We had to apply these specific statistics. And that's a hard thing to do, but I think I do it pretty well, and I think people appreciate it. So, did that answer the question?
Yes, it did. Definitely. Very good. The work you're doing with your employer, does it relate very closely to what you're doing with your own website, your own podcasts and such?
To a certain extent, it has been helpful because I made a little bit of a job shift, in part because I wanted to do more work with professors and help them get up to speed and with using computers. So I do videos that show them how to use the software. In order to do this, it's not just click here, click there, although that's a little bit of it. It's about how to motivate students, how to help them work better in groups. So there's even a little bit of psychology in there. So yeah, a little bit of what I do, plus the community building, blogging, and a little bit of SEO even, making sure that everything you put out there, you got some keywords in there, and people will be able to find it. That was another skill that I had to learn along the way. How do you write a blog post that's going to be found when people search for it? So yeah, I think they've appreciated that background.
You've gone well beyond what you do in your blog in terms of podcasts and video integration, or even making video, in terms of, for example, talking today about searching for materials using RSS and some of the more sophisticated applications. It seems to me that you're thirsty for knowledge. You're just picking up wherever and whatever you can find. You're really involved in a personal quest to make optimal use of the internet for educational purposes. Where does that drive come from?
Yeah, my father was a professor, so we've always had that sort of teaching sort of thing around us. I just I get a real big kick out of learning, and in a way, though, the podcast is a little bit restrictive because it's about psychology. But I happen to love musical theater, singing, dancing. Acting is fun. So there's a lot of things I'd love to do on those topics, but I can't really do because they don't really fit so well into psychology. So I don't know. I think I just when you learn something new that you never thought of, it's like, wow, that's cool. And I think having all teachers sort of say, oh, I love it when the lights go off for the student. It's kind of cliche-ish, right? But the lights go off for us too. And then you get excited and you want to share that. So, today I was just really excited about these things that you can do now with the web. And I just think I don't know, I'm just still amazed by what you can do if you really dig in.